Why are you seeking re-election to the Sioux City Council?
Well, it was a decision that I gave a lot of thought to, but I think at the end of the day, we've experienced tremendous momentum. We have a lot of great projects going. We've done a lot over the last 4 years, a lot of things that I think we should be proud and excited about, and I want to continue that momentum. I want to be a part of that, continue some of the things that we have teed up right now, and just be a part of the action. I think that it is a citizen's responsibility to try to make the biggest impact they can on the community around them. I see this as an opportunity to impact a community that has made such a tremendous impact on my life. So that's why I'm seeking re-election.
What qualities, experience, skills do you possess that you think makes you a good representative of the citizens of Sioux City, and what sets you apart from the other candidates?
Well, I would say some of the qualities that maybe set me apart, or some of the qualities that I think you would want in a candidate, is that they're approachable. You know, I like to consider myself pretty approachable, that almost anyone, whether you're at a public event or on the street or shooting an email or a phone call, I'm pretty easily reached, maybe even via social media. And so I like having those conversations. I appreciate constituents reaching out and asking me things so that I can provide clarity, because I think a lot of times we go off of rumor or something we've heard, and I want to make sure that I'm representing people that feel that they can not only be heard, but they can ask questions. And so I think that approachability is one. Number two, I would say another quality is that I really enjoy attending various events throughout the community. I think that you want an elected official that's out and about, that you see at all these different events and venues, because it's important to experience the community that you want to represent. I think that that's really important, is to be an active part and an active member in it, so that you can better lead your community. You hear what people are talking about, what they're passionate about, what they want to see done, and then you can really work to implement that. So I mean, those are a couple of the qualities. I would also say that I'm pretty even keel. I really am pretty slow to temper or anger. I think that you need some of that. You need those personalities on city council and representing you, because we need to work together rather than see differences, and really see the opportunity that might be before us, even if it seems like it might be a tense topic or a passionate constituent. I think oftentimes if we can alleviate some of those tensions and find a way to move forward in a meaningful way as a community, I think that's a benefit, and I think that that's something that I try to bring to council as well.
What have you accomplished on the council that you are most proud of, and why should the citizens of Sioux City vote to re-elect you?
Wow, that could be a long answer. I'm going to try to break it down to a few different things. Some of the things that I'm most proud of, I would say one of the projects that I was most proud to have voted on and really worked on was the reinvestment district. I think that it's a project that not a lot of people understand the mechanisms or understood necessarily how it worked, but it really made a big splash on our downtown in particular. What the reinvestment district allowed us to do is, it's a state program that really focused on how can we capitalize on state hotel motel tax, allow communities to capture this and reinvest that into their community. And so you partner with hotels to be able to capture that tax. So what we did is we partnered with the Warrior Hotel as well as the Courtyard by Marriott downtown, able to get those two projects up and going. And then from that, utilize those captured state dollars, which we're going to capture just about $13.5 million, and then turn around and reinvest that. So from our being able to capture the 13.5, we've leveraged that into nearly $150 million in projects that we're having downtown. I mentioned some of them. So we have our Courtyard by Marriott, the Warrior Hotel. You also have some of the Virginia Square projects, as well as the Expo Center. And I think all of those things were such an important part of revitalizing our downtown, bringing new business, new excitement to downtown. I love the new restaurants and businesses that are going downtown, and I think they're a direct reflection on that program. I think that you would talk to the staff out at the Expo Center. They're also excited about all the energy and activity that they have going on there. And so I think that that was a big program or a big project that I think we can be proud of, that really you saw a huge reinvestment into our community. Another one is, I think, another thing that I've been proud of is we've been able to do all of this and experience this tremendous momentum, as I referenced, all while being responsible for taxpayer dollars. You know, the average decrease to our levy over the last 3 years has been 3.5% annually. And so I think that we need to be responsible for taxpayer dollars, and we need to answer to the public, say what we're doing with those dollars, and that the things we are investing on are having a great return on that investment. The last thing, Dolly, if I can say like another project that I'm really proud of, is our renewable fuels project. Another one that maybe people aren't as familiar with. So we actually had a renewable fuels biogas project down at our wastewater treatment plant. The project itself was about $10 million of investment, and what's awesome about it is that we were the third municipal city in the country to get this, and we're looking at nearly $2 million of annual revenue coming in from that program, and we're already looking at ways to improve it to increase that annual revenue from $2 million. I think that's exciting considering that we were just burning off this gas into the atmosphere. Now we're capturing it, putting it in a pipeline, and selling it and making revenue. That was a smart decision. And not only because we're going to capitalize on that revenue and get that return on investment, but also because you see that all the time of businesses that are looking to relocate for communities that are doing more green energy projects. And so I think you're going to see more of that. And I guess finally, like one more last thing I would just put, and I realize I'm pointing out a lot of them, would be this most recent addition to our airport. The flight school, I think, is going to be instrumental in keeping our airport, getting those those touch points, takeoffs, touchdowns. I think it's really going to revitalize that area to a way that we never imagined it before. I'm really excited about that as well.
Looking back on your time on the council, is there anything you would do differently, or are there any votes that you would change?
Wow. I don't know. I think that it's easy to be overly critical of yourself. You know what I mean? When you have a difficult vote, I try for the most part to really think with an open mind and gather as much information from both constituents as well as experts before going into it and making a decision. I mean, some of the simple things that I think about that I wish we would have done was, one of them was for the reinvestment district and the Courtyard by Marriott in particular, we looked really, really hard at trying to buy the old Howard Johnson Hotel and utilizing that site rather than building a new hotel. I wish we would have been able to do that. But the fact of the matter is, every time we went to that property, it wasn't a price point that we could be able to work with. And so we weren't able to buy that. And I think about that a lot, that I wish we would have. I'm hopeful for that to be developed in the future, because I think there's a real opportunity and that an investor wants to capitalize on the momentum that we're experiencing. So I wish we could have closed that deal with the reinvestment district, but it just didn't happen. But I'm still hopeful for that property.
If you are reelected, what will your top priorities be?
Yeah, it's tough to boil it down as with your question about some of the accomplishments or great projects we have going. It's tough to just narrow it down to a few things, right? I would say there are a couple things that are obvious. Number one, we really need to continue to lean into our infrastructure and invest in our infrastructure. It's something I hear all the time, right? Potholes, potholes, potholes. We need to work on it. I understand. The fact of the matter is that we're filling a tremendous amount of potholes. We have a road crew that's working all the time on trying to address those issues. But we live in a climate where it's really difficult to stay on top of that. And so I was pretty proud of our communications team for implementing a report a pothole system on our website, right? And so I think that things like that, the overlay projects, the total reconstructions of streets, things like that are things that we need to continue to invest in. And that's why you're seeing the American Rescue Plan. Those dollars, a lot of that is going towards infrastructure. Now, granted, the federal government directed it to that, but I think that's going to help alleviate some of our budget balances as well, moving forward and really continuing to invest in our streets. Another thing that I would say that's really pretty easy is you need to continue to really be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. I mentioned before the fact that we're reducing our levy by an average of 3.5% annually over the last 3 years, and we need to continue to be good stewards. We need to make sure that we're not raising taxes if it's not needed, and that we're not lowering that if that revenue is needed or if that money is needed elsewhere. So I think continuing to watch the balance the budget is really important. The final thing that I would say is, as far as a priority, is just making sure that we're continuing to invest in quality of life amenities. What I mean by that is I want to make sure that the people that are living here enjoy living here and have plenty to do, and that we're setting ourselves up so that the people that are visiting here are excited to visit. They're exploring a lot of our parks, our amenities, our attractions that we have to offer, so that they're thinking about moving here. Because at the end of the day, if we're not offering people an opportunity or a reason to move here, we're not going to grow and we're not going to be able to expand that tax base. And so I'm really looking at continuing to make those investments.
You mentioned the tax levy, but at the same time, we've got residential property valuations on the rise. Is there more that you can do to reduce the burden on local taxpayers?
Well, and especially you just ran a story about it recently about the multifamily, and that levy that's going to, or not levy, but that assessment process that's going to have a substantial increase. I think at the end of the day, we need to remind taxpayers that the assessment process is not a city function. It may say the Sioux City assessor, but it's nothing that we can control. It's an independent entity. So what we need to do as the city council is continue to look for ways to reduce that levy or offset future increases. So another way that I think we as a city council have really worked hard, and something I've been an advocate for to try to reduce that burden on taxpayers, has been by investing in our sewer and our water infrastructure. You see that with the American Rescue Plan. What that does is that's going to make it, while we may use those dollars to invest in that infrastructure, it's going to be able to offset future rate increases. That's the hope. So that we don't have to go back for annual rate increases for sewer, for water, for things like that, and continue to work on our tax levy. I really feel that we need to continue to do the best we can as a council, and I think we have the last 4 years.
Illegal fireworks discharge has been a big issue this past year. What is your current stance on that?
I tell you what, it is a pretty contentious issue, and it's something that people are really passionate about. I've listened to a lot of individuals. I've had a lot of individual meetings about this. In fact, I have one that I'm setting up for next week to visit with people as well. I think that we haven't truly realized where people are, where our community is on this issue. We have some that are very vocal, that come to campus and want us to, or come to campus, that come to council and really want us to either ban them or keep them. I think we need to see where the general population is. I would never imagine wanting to put a veteran that experienced PTSD because of these fireworks through that. I don't want to. But I do want to work with organizations such as Support Siouxland Soldiers and others to see if that's what they're hearing. If they're hearing that call to ban them, because then we probably should. Right? My plea to the taxpayers, to the people of Sioux City, is to follow the ordinance that we have in place. I think we're trying to find that middle ground, allowing individuals to set them off, giving them that freedom, but also having it during a window that's acceptable. So really my stance is if we could continue the way that we have that, that would be my preference. But at the end of the day, if veterans and our pets and families are really being traumatized by this, and if there are the populations to warrant that, I think we need to look at banning them.
Sioux City's population is growing and becoming more diverse based on recently released census data. How inclusive do you think Sioux City is? What, if any improvements do you think can be made to make it more welcoming?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would say, well, to your first point is that's exciting that we're growing. It's a good thing, and I think we need to embrace our diversity. It's something that I'm very excited about. I would say that two things that we need to do and continue to do, or maybe even do better. First and foremost, I think it was a step in the right direction for hiring an inclusivity liaison, right? Hiring Samhar to be able to do that and really act as that go-between, working with city facilities, individuals in the community, being that voice and having that committee, I think was a great move. And I think that you're really seeing that produce when you're having these speak out series, when you're having events, when you're able to address concerns before they really come to the attention of the city council. I think that was a good step. The other thing that I think we can do to continue to be more inclusive is maybe look at supporting our small businesses. You know, a lot of different minority populations are really passionate about their restaurants and want to get them up and going, but perhaps maybe don't understand what it's like to put a business plan together, or finding a space, or making sure it's compliant with our inspections team. I think we want to make sure to streamline that process and make it as easy as possible. If you're a minority population that wants to start a business or grow a business, we don't want anyone in City Hall to have some red tape to stop you. We need to make sure that we're embracing that and that we're encouraging it. So that's something I think we can continue to do. The third thing that I would just bring up is, especially with our public safety, making sure that we're continuing to have opportunities for our public safety, whether it's our police department or fire department or otherwise, to reach out to those populations and show that they're there to support them. They're there to be a part of the community just as they are, and make sure that they feel safe. That's another thing we need to continue to do.
Riverfront development is underway, but there hasn't been a final decision on what the iconic feature will be. Different ideas have been floated, including a pedestrian bridge that could cost millions of dollars. What would you like to see?
Yeah, that's another one where I tell you what, people have a lot of opinions, are very, very passionate about what they want and what they don't want. At the end of the day, I think we really need to be responsible for those taxpayer dollars, not to get into a situation where we make an investment in an iconic feature that requires a great deal of upkeep in the future. I think that that's something that I'm worried about. We have this way in the past with Sioux City where we build these amazing amenities and then we don't allocate enough budget to make sure to maintain them or improve them. That can't happen at the riverfront. And so I think what I do is I trust the committee that's been put together. They've been working on this for a long time to be able to garner public input. I don't want to be a council member that says, look, I understand that you've been investigating this and working on this for multiple years, but I disagree with your findings. I'm going to go this other direction. I don't want to be that council member. So I think leaning on them and relying on them to make a decision that's reflective of the community's desire, I think is important. What I would say in regards to the pedestrian bridge is I've always been a fan. Right? I've used the Bob the Bridge down in Omaha. I think that it's a great way to connect our communities, especially our trail system, because as someone that hits the trails regularly, it doesn't necessarily feel like a bike trail or something you normally want to traverse going over Veterans Bridge. But I understand the duplicity and I understand people's concerns about that price tag. The bridge down by Omaha was built largely with federal dollars, and if those grant opportunities aren't there to be able to support that, there's no way I'm going to use taxpayer dollars for something like that. We need to make sure that we're looking for donations and private dollars or grant dollars to be able to really afford these iconic features.
You have been a big part of the newly formed Sioux City Regional Convention and Visitors Bureau. And on occasion, Mayor Bob Scott has chided you a little bit about how quickly that sort of came together. How do you think the Bureau has been handled thus far, and when do you expect to see results such as an increase in hotel participation and more events coming to city facilities?
Yeah, it's a good question, and Dolly, you were very PC in the way you worded it. He most certainly has been critical at times, but just wanting information, which he is rightfully so warranted to. It's something that I've been really thankful the council has been behind. It's something that I am extraordinarily passionate about, because I think that if a community isn't telling their story, if they're not talking about the incredible things that they have going on in their community, then who is? Right? We have to be able to shape that narrative and talk about all of the great things that we have going on in our community, whether it's out at the Arena Sports Academy, whether it's the Riverfront, whether it's the Riverfront or the Expo Center, all of those places where you see so much investment, or even look at Longlines, the partnership that we've been able to form with the arena as well. And you have Tyson Event Center. I mean, you have this coordination of events like you never have before. And I think that we're just starting to gain that momentum. I think these things take time, to be honest with you. And I think that we have experienced tremendous momentum so far, and good growth. We've had an increase in the hotels that have signed on, so that's hopeful. At the end of the day, you don't necessarily need to have every single hotel be a partner, but you want to make sure the big players are at the table. And then the other thing that I would say is, as far as the events, we're already seeing that come to fruition. We have them sponsoring a couple events on the books already, and I think that their coordination is going to be critical moving forward, so we can take that off of the plate of the arena and of Tyson Event Center and really coordinate an effort to where we're all comprehensive, we're all rowing in the same direction, which I think is something that we've really missed in the past.
Concerns about the treatment of Sioux City's homeless have been raised. What do you think the council can do to address homelessness in Sioux City?
Honestly, I think it's education. I think education is a big part of that because I've been a part of some of those meetings. I've talked to Semhar, I've talked to other individuals that have been a part of them. And I think what I've seen is that it's a lack of awareness of everything that we're offering and that we're trying to do for the homeless population. Jill and her team, as well as all of the others, whether you're talking about street medicine or other things, really have been extraordinary during these times and are really doing a great job. Whether you look at the rapid rehousing that we've been able to do, or you look at our partnerships, both public and private, to really try to meet this need. We need to do a better job about educating the public about all of the resources and things we have going on, and we need to educate them so that they can help maybe people that are experiencing homelessness, right? We talk about the campaign to make sure they're not giving a hand out, such as dollars or things like that, but talking about the resources that we have available. Because at the end of the day, like, my hope would be really to get them off the streets, maybe find them a more permanent residence, and surely find them a job. We need workforce. So if they're looking for an opportunity to work, we want to make sure that we connect those dots for them.
Are there specific issues that you think the city should seek support from the state on?
Yeah, definitely. I think tax relief. I think that you look at the rollback, you look at things like that, things that were promised. We need to make sure that we stand by those things. I also think that you look at historic tax credits. I think I don't have the time to do this, I wouldn't mind doing this sometime, seeing where a lot of those dollars have went around the state and how much Sioux City has gotten comparatively. I think we're starting to catch up. You look at the Warrior Hotel, you look at the Badgero building, you look at some of those properties, we're starting to catch up, but I think we've been behind for a long time. And so I think that we need to look at those state grant programs, the workforce housing tax credits, things like that, those programs that can really incentivize more business, more housing, more things in Sioux City. We need to make sure that we're taking advantage of, and we need to make sure that we are talking with our representatives about the impact that it's having in Sioux City so that they can push those initiatives as well.
There's certainly a demand for housing in Sioux City. What would you consider affordable housing as far as single-family homes and rentals? And what do you think can be done to create that affordable housing?
Well, I tell you what, the $1 million question that you asked, what is affordable housing? You know, and Dan and I go round and round talking about what that means. And I don't know if we come to an agreement, right, about what that benchmark looks like. But what I would tell you is that what's troubling to me is that when I watch our students graduating from Morningside College, some of them are considering sticking around in Sioux City, and I wish more would. But others that I talk to are looking at some of our area communities, right, that we compare ourselves to all the time. And they're telling me, look, well, I can move to Omaha, pay the same rent, and make X amount of dollars more in salary. Why would I stay in Sioux City when I can make more money and have the same rent? And I think that's a tough question. I think that when we ask starting families to try to find a home that they can afford in our community, it's tough to do. It's really challenging. And so I don't know how we can continue to grow as a community when it's not like the city council can regulate how much they can charge in rent. And I understand our developers are simply trying to recoup their investment, right? But I think what I've tried to do, because this is a tough nut to crack, what I've really tried to do is supply and demand. Because if we can not necessarily flood the market, but if we can infuse the market with more rentals, more opportunities, more apartment complexes, surely they'll have to get more competitive. Surely they'll offer other amenities or drive their prices down. Let's think back. 4 years ago, we did not have the Hatch, we did not have the Commerce Building, we did not have the Badger, which is on deck, and we did not have the Davidson Building. None of those downtown apartment projects were even here, right? How many of them behind Fleet Farm were up 4 years ago, right? I think that you've seen the best that we can, or the best way that I know how to really try to infuse the market and get more supply, so that hopefully those prices can go down or at least remain where they're at. Because I talk to people that are just graduating college, or I talk to families that are trying to buy a home, and it's challenging. And I would tell you, I find it frustrating. And so I'm trying to do the best way that I know how to try to keep those prices manageable.